Hi, everyone. Dr. Liz here. Welcome to the Hypnotize Me podcast. I'm glad you're here, glad you're listening and learning, and hopefully it will help you with your journey along the way. I am a psychotherapist with a specialty in anxiety, insomnia, and deeper emotional healing. Hypnosis is one of the tools in my toolbox that I use to help people feel better and to help people be better. I do work all over the world. Please feel free to reach out and contact me if you would like some help. I've been an entrepreneur for most of my adult life, built an award-winning company, sold it, and then focused mainly on my private practice. That gives you a unique perspective, especially my ability to work with people in business at all kinds of levels. Before I go, if you'd like to support the podcast, you can go and subscribe to the newsletter. And you'll get free hypnosis downloads that you can listen to immediately. Another way is to buy one of the downloads that I have for sale. I only have a couple up there, but they're good ones. They've stood the test of time. I made the decision to not run ads during my podcast because I really do see it as an act of service. I completely respect people who do have ads on their podcast, but it's just not my path. All right, everyone, enjoy the episode. And I hope to see you back here soon. Hi everyone, Dr. Liz here. My interview today is with Michelle Niemeyer, and she has a really interesting life path. You're going to hear about a life-threatening disease that led to some major changes in her life. You're going to hear about burnout and how both of us made career changes after burnout. And you are going to hear about how to regain control of your time. But really, it's about regaining control of your happiness, about finding fulfillment, regardless of whether you choose to shift your career path. You may or may not. So I hope you enjoy the interview and that you're healthy and safe. Peace. Hi, Michelle. Welcome to the Hypnotize Me podcast.
Thank you, Liz. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I was really excited to get your email that you work with Burnout and you're an ex-lawyer, let's say, right? Although I'm not sure anyone is ever an ex-lawyer. But you had a previous career, let's say, as a lawyer. Share with the listeners some of your story about how you begin to end up where you are now.
Okay, and I'll keep that part short so I can give your audience the things that really matter.
Okay.
So I worked as a lawyer for 33 years, and in that career, I had a number of different kinds of practice environments. I was with a larger firm in the beginning, and I traveled all over the country, and then I moved to Miami and started working more in, I don't want to say local practice, but more local. Most of my clients were here in Florida. Cases were all over the state, but it was primarily in Florida. Ironically, my last case was actually in Massachusetts, where I went to law school, and it was a blast. But I hit a point about 20 years into my career where I was very, very burned out. And for those who don't really know what burnout is, the World Health Organization has now defined it in a way that I don't agree with, by the way. They define it as being related to workplace stress. And, as much as I think that's probably true, yes, people have a lot of stress from work and they're very busy and they feel overwhelmed with responsibilities or too many things, or they're, it's constant and it's chronic and it doesn't go away. People also have whole lives, and the person who is feeling burned out often is feeling burned out because it's not just what's going on at work. It's also potentially what's going on at home, or what's going on in their extended family, or what's going on in their other activities.
Yes.
And I'll give you an example. In my case, when I got burned out, I had my own law practice. I was able to control my workflow. I did a very good job of that, frankly. But I had gone through a divorce during the bad part of my marriage. And when I was beginning my own practice, I started getting very involved in local community activities. So, what started as a volunteer position, being on a committee dealing with something with the city, turned into me being on the Chamber of Commerce board, turned into me being appointed to a local village council and then elected twice. And those things that I was doing were literally like another full-time job.
Yeah.
So, was my burnout from work, quote, work, my office? No, not really. I mean, partly, but it also was from overextending into the community and overextending in different ways like that. So, that's, like I said, it had to do with a lot of different things. Culminating in, I ran for public office. I spent, an enormous amount of time on that. I did not win. And at the end of that, I felt just depleted. I felt like I'd given everything to everyone.
Yeah.
And when it mattered, people had not stood behind me who had encouraged me to run. They were afraid of my adversary, who was very vindictive. Kind of sounds familiar to today, but that was going on in a microcosm in Miami at the time. So what ended up happening was I got very withdrawn. I felt detached. People who are burned out sort of start to resent what they do. So, I was resentful. I was detached. I was not connected. I was kind of hiding from the world for a while. And I realized that was happening. And I did some of the things I knew to get, I started trying to make a point of seeing my friends. I started going on, like running every morning, things like that. I thought I was doing better. And then I had this incident where I was back in the flow as far as work went and all the rest. I had this incident where I went to sleep one night, or tried to. And when I laid on my back, I had this pain that was where you would expect appendicitis to hurt.
Okay.
It was on my right side, and kind of like if you put your hand above your hip and like right where your hand would be in that area. And if I stood up, I felt okay. And if I laid down, it hurt. And then I'd stand up and it would feel okay. And I'd lay down and it would hurt. And this went on until about 2 a.m. And I finally fell asleep. And it happened again the next night. And when it happened again the next night, I'm on my computer, like basically on my phone, looking at Google, like I'm Google MDing my diagnosis of probably appendicitis, and thinking I'm that person with a high pain threshold who could like end up with sepsis, right?
Yeah.
So I decided to go to the emergency room. And at the emergency room, they did blood testing, and the blood testing had some bad like liver enzyme issues that are consistent with gallstones.
Okay.
And so they did an ultrasound and they couldn't find anything. And they sent me away with this weird non-diagnosis of, we think it's gallstones. And sometimes people could have gallstones, but we can't see them. And I'm like, really? And I went home and I decided I can fix this. I'll just, as always, get in shape, eat better, exercise.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And about a month into that process, I joined Beachbody. And
I remember Beachbody.
I had an assistant who was a Beachbody coach, and I joined her Beachbody team. I started as a coach to get the discount. And then I actually got involved in the coaching, and they provide you with a lot of really good access to personal development and that kind of thing.
Yeah, they
do. I learned a lot from it, and it was a lot that I didn't know before. I learned a lot about nutrition. I learned a lot about, physical good health.
Yeah.
Fast forward a year, I'm at literally my high school weight. I feel great. I look great. I'm like happy. Everything's great. And I had a UTI, and I go to the doctor, and the doctor says, you haven't been here for a checkup in a while. Why don't we pull some blood and just do, run some regular blood panels?
Yeah.
And he calls me that Friday, and he says, I need to see you to talk to you about your blood test results. And I'm
Oh
like,
no, that's never
what?
good, right? Like the doctor never calls you for international listeners in the US. The doctor never calls you.
Called me on my
Yeah.
cell phone. It wasn't even like his staff called and said, can we make an appointment?
Yeah.
He
Uh-huh.
personally called me on my cell phone and said, can you come in on Monday? And this was like on a Saturday. Like,
Oh yeah, right.
so I go in and he says, well, I saw these results and then I went back into your record and I saw the results from when you were in the hospital. And he said, all those liver numbers that were off are now twice as bad as they were a year ago.
Whoa. Okay.
And I don't know what this means. I'm not a hepatologist or a gastroenterologist, but I think you need to see somebody. And he sent me to somebody. That turned into a diagnosis of a very rare autoimmune disease called primary biliary cholangitis.
Oh,
It's a disease where the essentially your microscopic bile ducts are attacked by your immune system. And when the
okay.
bile ducts are messed up and the bile can't move through, then the bile is highly caustic and it damages your liver. So in the end, if you don't
And it would cause that gallbladder like pain,
exactly,
like a gall.
and if there's no treatment for this, the things I was seeing online at the time were like 10-year lifespan,
Whoa.
like liver transplant or you die kind of stuff. And I'm like, what? Right? I mean, it's scary.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so that threw me into this major action mode. I had done a lot of medical research as part of my legal work. So I was familiar with getting into the NIH database and this and that. I
Hmm.
did a ton of research. I found a hepatologist because I wasn't sticking with a gastro for this, who was here in Miami and who appeared to be the one who knew what he was talking about. He really wasn't. He was the department head. He ended up
Okay.
firing me as a patient because I refused to get a biopsy. And
Uh-huh.
biopsies were still the standard of care in the States at that point, but they were not in Europe. And there was a type of scan they
Okay.
could do that works just as well. So, he got mad when I wouldn't get a biopsy and told me I'd have to see his associate. And it turned out his associate was the person who'd written all the articles that looked like it was his,
Oh,
like, and she knew immediately. She's like, you don't need a biopsy. I'm like, I know I don't need a biopsy, but he wanted to make me get one.
awesome.
So anyway, I also tandem to this because I knew that autoimmune diagnoses often involve, the line of we don't know what causes this and there's no cure for it, but,
Hmm.
and then
Hmm.
often steroids. And I was like, I'm not doing that. And I
Hmm.
do want to know, what can I do that's different that might be able to change my body's response so that it doesn't continue to get worse.
Hmm.
And I ended up going to a health coaching school to get a certification. I studied for, I don't know, like probably 10, 12 hours a week for a year almost,
Hmm.
and implemented a lot of those things. And at the end of, sometime after that, it took a long time for my blood test to go into the normal range. There's a medication. I tried to fix it with diet. That does not work. There's a medication that helps. And thank God for me. I mean, 60% of the people respond to it. So 40 don't, and I do
Okay.
respond to it. So that was good. I was able to, get my
Hmm.
blood test results into the normal range. And at the same time, I was doing all these other things that, who knows, right? Does it help? Does it not help? But there are tests that test it's like if you have fibrosis or cirrhosis, the elasticity
Hmm.
of your liver tissue is stiffer.
Okay.
So there are tests they can do. There's an ultrasound called a FibroScan they can do, which basically measures that stiffness. And
Hmm.
my FibroScan scores went down. Instead of going
Mm.
up, they've gone
Yeah.
down significantly, like from the stage 2 to the stage 0. And,
Wow.
that's all happened during this time that I've been
Hmm.
looking at, like I said, 10-year lifespan. That was 10 years ago, by the way.
Okay.
And, I'm doing great. And so I'm looking at this and from that perspective, like all these changes I made were really about my health.
Mm-hmm.
They were about literally being scared to death and going, oh my God, I've got to change some things. And I changed all kinds of different things.
Uh-huh.
And at the end of it, at some point, I was realizing I feel better than I did in my 20s.
Mm-hmm.
I'm happier. I am more productive. I'm engaged again. Like I actually like being a lawyer again. By the time I walked away from my law career, it wasn't because I hated being a lawyer. It was because I had decided that I could do something bigger and better in the world, so to speak, if I could share what I had done.
Got it.
And help other people. And I realized that, my sort of through line in my life, the thing that's kind of in my heart and my soul, is in connecting with and coaching people and helping people to see in themselves that gift that they have that makes them shine and makes them feel good and makes them happy. And so, I had done that in pieces of my every career I've ever had. And so I'm back to that, basically doing this. Anyway, that's how I got to where I am now.
Okay. Great. Long story. Yeah. Sometimes it is a health crisis that spurs people to make significant and massive change in their life. Yeah. And that changes all kinds of stuff. It really does. It's not just one area. It's like you don't just change your health, like your mental state, your emotional, all of that goes with it.
It's completely tied together.
It is.
I truly believe that.
Yeah. And the opposite too. I think I faced burnout twice in my life. Once after I had earned a PhD in clinical psychology and decided to leave the field. For me, what happens is it starts to lose meaning. I feel like I'm not making a difference in the world. I don't matter. What I'm doing doesn't matter. Like anybody could do it, like that's the feeling that comes over me. And I didn't recognize that it was burnout the first time. Actually, I did end up leaving the field of psychology and going into tech, actually. And then returning to it like 10 years later. And when I had to go and get licensed, because I never got licensed, I had to take some classes because the master's license was different from like the PhD level license. And I had decided to do a master's level license because of some various factors. But anyway, I took this one class on career counseling and had to write a paper about burnout. And I was like, oh my God, this is what happened to me.
Ding, ding, ding.
I didn't even know it at the time.
Yeah.
I mean, I cannot tell you, my mother cried, literally started crying when I said, I can't do this anymore. I can't be a psychologist. I wasn't a licensed psychologist, but it's like, I was working as a therapist trying to earn hours and stuff. I was like, I can't do it. And she was like, what? I mean, all these years, 10 years, right? Like,
well, and isn't that horrible that the person, and I had the same experience, the biggest pushback I've gotten about leaving law has come from my family.
Yeah.
And, here I am, I'm 60 years old and I was practicing for over 30 years and my parents are telling me, but you spent so much time in school. I'm like, when I was in my 20s and, I think I've earned the right to decide that I want to make this change.
Yeah. Well, that first one for me was at like 28, 29.
Yeah.
So I was only a year out of school. And
wow.
Yeah. And my boyfriend, who's later my husband, also was like just flabbergasted. Like all you have to do is sit there and listen to people and you can't do that. And I'm like, first of all, that's not all you have to do as a therapist. But second, no, I can't do it. Like, yeah. So it is interesting. Family often gives a lot of pushback when that happens. Yeah.
And you got to know in your own heart what you need.
Yes. Yeah. So, I mean, I think the stresses for sure play a factor for people, but I also see it as this internal experience that happens. And I think that's what you're saying the World Health Organization is sort of missing in that definition.
Big time when they say it's about work, because it's not just about work.
Yeah, no.
And, so what I did was I looked at, okay, how did I get to this? How did I get from point A to point B?
Yeah.
And who was I when I was at point A? And like you, I didn't identify that as burnout. It happened in like 2012, 13. Nobody was talking about burnout.
Yeah.
I had no idea. I
Mm-hmm.
remember, I had this very close friend who would I'd complain about how much I hated being a lawyer, and he'd be like, "You need to be grateful." And I'm like, "What the hell for?" Like,
Yeah.
I wasn't. I couldn't see one thing to be grateful about. I felt trapped.
Yes.
I felt like I was beholden to this thing that I was doing that I didn't
Yeah.
want to be doing. And why would I feel grateful for that? It was like my prison.
Yes.
And now I look back on it and I'm like, I could kind of see it from his perspective, and I'm like, wow. But the other piece of it is that I thought I had a time management problem
Ah.
because I couldn't focus.
Uh-huh.
I would be there at work all day and I'd be like, I couldn't get work done. I
Yeah.
was like, I saw it as an organizational problem or as more of a focus problem than as a problem with that I was burned out.
Yeah.
And so the first thing I did to try to fix things was buy a time management program.
I mean, it's a good strategy if you think that's what your problem is.
I
Right?
thought it was my
Yeah.
problem, right? I was highly distractible. I had there were a lot of things where I was like, oh, if I do these things, I can make myself more efficient, productive. And that's what I thought the problem was, not burnout.
Uh-huh.
So I bought a time management program, and, some of the stuff I learned in that program is now in the Art of Bending Time.
Uh-huh.
General concepts from it are, but really what I learned was that what mattered most was having a really rock solid level of clarity
Mm.
about who I am and what lights me up, what makes me happy.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something that I start with people, and we carry this through the whole time because it's so important. There's probably things like I mentioned to you, I think before we started recording, where there's a through line.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's a through line for me from every job I've ever had
Yeah.
that I've chosen, and in ways that I've engaged, there's been a through line, and that through line has been sort of mentorship and interaction with other people.
Mm-hmm.
And, that has been a constant, whether I was doing it as I was a tech headhunter after college,
Ah.
whether I was doing it as a headhunter, whether I was doing it mentoring younger lawyers and paralegals in
Mm-hmm.
my legal positions, whether I was doing it in the political stuff where I was connecting with people, whether they were residents or they were people who were part of the city government, trying to get them to do things that would benefit our community.
Mm-hmm.
In all of those roles, I had that connecting with people and kind of elevating through that connection.
Yes.
And that's the through line for me. That's the thing that lights me up. If I can get that even a little bit in
Mm-hmm.
my job, I could pick up garbage on the street.
Uh-huh.
And if I could have that connection with someone where I have eye contact with a homeless person,
Mm-hmm.
or whatever it is, I could be giving myself those little sparks that make me happy.
Yes. Okay. Got it. So part of the task, let's say when someone comes to you, is finding like what's the
That's the
commonality there?
first priority.
Yeah.
Is figuring that out. And I do a guided meditation and some journaling with them and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And we come to, these are not big things. These are very internal, it could be that you love seeing the sparks of the water, like the sparkles of the water as you're walking. Like I walk in a park on the waterfront here in Miami every morning.
Mm-hmm.
And just having that time to be near the water and see the sunshine on the water and feel the air and just being outside, like that lights me up and makes me feel good.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like things like that, moving your body. Some people are highly kinesthetic, just having physical activity every day
Yeah.
and working that into your day so that you have it not, you're not sitting for
Mm-hmm.
10 hours at a stretch.
Right. Yeah.
Um, it's different for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Some people are more visually oriented. It might be about having a beautiful environment, and you might be
Mm-hmm.
able to make a difference for yourself just by cleaning out the clutter and putting some nice artwork where you can see it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's for everybody's different. So we find those things because when we can have those things easily accessible and we can proactively put them into our lives, our whole
Mm-hmm.
lives, not our work
Yeah.
life,
Mm-hmm.
we fuel ourselves.
Yes, absolutely. I agree with that. And I think in my younger years, I didn't realize a lot of that and how
Mm-hmm.
necessary it was. But as I have begun to age, then it's like, oh, yeah, I really need this time to write my gratefulness list and do a little bit of art, and I really need
Yeah.
the exercise piece. Yeah, it's all these different elements. And it's like, yeah, I have to take not have to, but I want to take a stroll every day. So I'm no longer like the super exerciser outside like I used to be, but it's like I still need to stroll. It helps me just being out in the sunshine or even the rain if it's raining.
Yeah.
We have a lot of rain in Florida. I know here in Miami and up here in Jacksonville, we just went through a whole week of rain. I think you did too. But even in the summers in Florida,
We've
it's like,
had the rainiest rainy season.
yeah,
I moved here in 97, and when I first moved here, every single summer it would rain every day.
yeah.
And it seems like I was just telling my mom this yesterday. It seemed like in the last, like, let's say 10 years, we had really much drier summers.
Oh, yeah.
They,
Uh-huh.
we didn't have the rain shower every afternoon, which you'd normally expect.
Right. You could
But
count on it. It's
this
like
year,
clockwork. Yeah.
it's rained like crazy this year.
Yes, that's what I've heard. I moved to Fort Lauderdale in 95, so right
Hmm.
before you, and then I just moved up to Jacksonville this year in 2025. So yeah, it's like you used to count on it 2 o'clock, 1:45, right before school would let out. It would start raining, and then they'd have to hold the kids, and you're like,
Yeah.
oh my God, I gotta get back to work. How long is this gonna take? Like.
Right.
And then it stopped. You get about an hour and a half and then it stopped. So
Right.
yeah, that has shifted for sure. But back to burnout. I did have a question about like when do usually people reach out to you? Like what happens? Do they recognize like I'm just not happy or I'm really struggling? Like what is that tipping point where they usually look?
Yeah, I think people realize sometimes they get really overwhelmed or they're going through a change.
Okay.
I mean, sadly people can get into a groove where they're just stuck for a really long time.
Yeah.
And
I mean, I see them
typically
as
they
years.
don't just come out of that groove.
Right. It
And
happens
they
for
don't see
years in
that
my
they need to
practice.
leave that groove. They're content, but they're not happy.
Yeah.
They're just treading water, right?
Yeah.
And you can tread water for a really long time before you drown.
You can. Hmm.
And tons of people are like that. But often what'll happen is it's because there's some kind of a major stressor that happens. There's a health issue, or maybe they're worried they'll lose their job, or they have lost their job, or
Mm.
they're getting a divorce, or their parent just died and they're faced with, is this all there is?
Hmm.
A lot of times it's when somebody it's some kind of a moment where they're like, wait a minute, like, is this all there is? I don't want
Yeah.
to live a life like this for the rest of my life. What do I do?
Yeah.
You know,
Well, is this all there is? Is that a lack of meaning question? Like, are they looking for meaning in their
it
life?
can be, but it's
Okay.
also it's angst. It's like a
Thanks.
existential angst.
Yeah.
It's hard. And the other thing is I work with businesses
Hmm.
and help them through workshops and leadership training for people so that teams can work better together
Okay.
and so that they have better retention and better productivity among the team members. And, a lot of times people don't fully recognize that they're not connected or they're not communicating well as a group.
Mm.
And when we help people find that thing that lights them up, let's say you've got a team of 10 people and they have team goals. And when you figure out in your team what lights people up, and you start, and you know it as a team, and you start proactively putting people in positions where they can get more of what lights them up in their day-to-day at work, it can make the whole team function better.
Oh, yeah.
Which is super cool. And,
Yes.
a lot of times then it's like those people didn't come there because they thought they had a problem. They came there because their boss wanted better productivity.
Right.
Right. But in the end, everybody benefits from it because they learn more about, oh, wow, I had forgotten how much I love making art. I found it interesting you said that because I'm the same way. I was the kid who loved art. I spent hours and hours in my room painting and drawing and, doing art things. But I was also the straight A student who had to drop art when there wasn't room for it in my schedule.
Yeah.
And I never continued. And then as an adult, I picked up, little classes here and there. I've never gone back and taken a full length, like major art class. I'll do these little, sip and paint kind of events and go to the ceramic studio and this and that. And, I look at my artwork and I see something finished and I go, that doesn't suck.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm really happy with my art that doesn't suck. It makes me feel good doing it.
Yes, I follow an artist and I didn't realize this until I did her little survey, but she was doing a survey because she runs online art classes. Willowing is her brand name. Tamara Laporte is her actual name. If someone wants to look her up, she runs a lot of art classes online. But anyway, she's doing the survey. How satisfied are you with your art? And one was like, never. Okay, two was about 80%, 3 was like 50% of the time I'm happy with what happens. And then when I took that survey, I realized like, oh, there's a progression here, right? Like first, you're never happy with whatever you're doing. And then as you start to gain skill, you really become more satisfied, I think, with what you're doing in terms of my process and a lot of others. I think there's a process probably outside of that, but the process for me is actually really important. The making feels really good, even if I'm not exactly happy with the result at the end. But most of the time these days, I am pretty happy.
Well, there's a lot of value in getting in a flow state.
Yes, and absolutely. Yeah.
Art lets you do that.
Yes.
And making music lets you do that.
Yes.
And if you're a runner, running lets you do that. There's a lot of things you can do where you can get in a flow state. And if you can do that, it's great. One of the things that I really recommend to people do as far as, the whole concept of bending time. And I'll tell you just in a nutshell, bending time does not mean obviously that you can physically, time isn't a physical thing. It's a construct we've come up with, and it has this linear implication to it. However, I like to look at time and go, okay, you could have a ruler and say from point A to point B is a week.
Right.
But your experience of that time could be like putting a balloon around that ruler and it can stretch. It can get bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
And you can do things to maximize the sort of the impact and the importance of what's in that time. And that can be by doing things that light you up. It can be by working with other people so that you have a bigger impact through the synergies of a bunch of people doing something as opposed to one person trying to do it themselves.
Yeah.
And flow state is huge because you can get so much more done in a flow state.
Yes.
So one of the things that I work with people about getting rid of distractions and finding ways to have that flow state in their work so that they can be more productive. So getting rid of notifications, for instance, if you have a job where you work at a desk and you're at your computer, you do not want your email pinging up in your face every time there's an email that comes in or a text that comes in or whatever. I suggest people schedule once or twice a day. I don't look at my email more than once or twice a day.
Yes, right.
I will not. It's not going to happen.
Yeah. Do you remember the 4-Hour Work Week, Tim Ferriss?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, when it first came out, I read it and And one of the major changes I made in my business at the time, I was running a prenatal yoga business, Yoga Fairy, was like notifications back, autoresponders back, notifications
Yeah.
on my voicemail. I return calls during these hours. I return emails during these hours because I also had little kids at
Yeah.
home. But it was like this whole shift of it's not just time management. It's like, okay, I need to be able to focus on other
Yes.
things that I want to do. And if I have
Exactly.
constant email or calls that I feel like I have to return immediately,
Right.
sometimes you convince yourself you do. And there are absolutely some businesses or careers where that is the case, but it was not for mine, and it's like,
Yeah.
oh, a shift of, okay, you can make some choices here. It's really hard to convince people of that, though. Like, how's your experience been?
I think it's because they want to have a sense of importance.
Okay.
They want to feel like they're so important in what they're doing that they have to be on and there all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I looked at it a little differently. As a lawyer, for instance, I was an insurance coverage lawyer. I sued
Uh-huh.
insurance companies or defended clients who were being sued by their insurance companies. That
Uh-huh.
happens way more than people think, by the way. Like more of my cases were defendants than there were plaintiffs, even though I was
Really?
representing the policyholder.
Huh.
Insurance companies love to sue you to get the court to say there's no coverage.
Ah, okay.
So, I did that. And the fact is, that's about money.
Yeah.
Unless you're like literally in the emergency room dying and the insurance company is saying, we won't pay for this treatment that will save your life, which
Mm-hmm.
is very unlikely to happen. Um, you don't need your lawyer to respond
Yeah,
immediately.
that's true. Right.
And, I made sure that, and this is something I had someone on a leadership podcast just say to me, oh my God, I never thought of it that way. I was like, how do you not think of it that way? Um, your client or your customer is part of your team.
Yes.
And this is something people don't often think about. And you see in law, and I know in some kinds of other professions where people have this idea that you're supposed to just drop everything the moment the client calls
Yeah.
and immediately get back to them. And I have never, I won't say I've never done that. I've worked in environments where that was expected.
Yes.
And when I had my own law practice, it was never expected. I
Mm-hmm.
controlled what was expected.
Mm-hmm.
And I made it very clear to my clients, listen, your case is very important to me.
Mm-hmm.
I will absolutely get back to you. But I want to be able to, first of all, get back to you with a well thought out response, not just have you like call me at 2 a.m. freaking out about something.
Yeah.
And so, email me or leave me a message and I will get back to you. But understand that if I'm focused on your work, I'm focused on your work. And that gives you the chance to have better quality work. And if I'm focused on somebody else's work, it's going to be the same. And I'm not going to respond to those things immediately. I'm going to do it outside of my focus time.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody complained.
Yeah. Right. Or you might get one person, but then you handle it with them.
The
Yeah.
one person who did that, who didn't accept that, I fired them as a client and gave back their money.
There you go.
Not everybody has that control. I had my own
Right.
practice. I had the right to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of times, if you have a good employer who will stand behind you, there are ways you can deal with those things.
Mm-hmm. Well, when people come to see you, are they often looking to change careers? Or are they looking for a way to stay in their career, but through burnout? Like in the burnout feels awful. Like, do we
Yeah,
want to end the
yeah.
burnout? Like,
And frankly, my hope by making this into a time management program,
uh-huh.
my hope is to catch them before they get as burned out as I got.
Okay. Got it.
Okay. When I was in that place where I bought the time management program,
Uh-huh.
I was not so deeply burned out that I wanted to leave law. I
Okay.
didn't really know yet what the problem was,
Uh-huh.
but I just thought, I'm not as effective. I'm not as efficient. I'm not as productive. Something's wrong. I need help with time management. So a
Okay.
lot of times if somebody responds to that, they're not deeply burned out yet.
Got it.
They're often the one who's like, they've got so many things going on in their life
Mm-hmm.
and they don't know how to keep the balls in the air and they're not
Mm-hmm.
sure what to do about it.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times for those people, that's why that clarity thing is so important, because the first thing you want to be able to do is know what really matters.
Yeah.
How many people are doing, all kinds of tasks that if you really look at it and you're, insightful about, this is what matters to me at my core to make me happy. This is what the values are I have. My children come first, or
Mm-hmm.
I have to take care of my health, or I need to make a certain amount of money to be able to not be homeless. Whatever that is, right?
Yeah.
You have certain core values that you're working toward. But 80% of the things we're doing are just junk.
Yeah.
And some of the things we're doing could be resolved by, for instance, how many moms drive their kids to the school every day?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it used to be when I was a kid, I was a swimmer. I went to a
Mm-hmm.
public school system. I took the bus to school, but I was a swimmer and I was on a swim team that had practices at the other high school in our county, which was pretty far.
Mm-hmm.
My mom was a housewife and she didn't drive me every day. There was a carpool.
Oh, yeah. Right.
So the moms took turns, right? And she only drove like once a week.
Yeah. I
Now you
walked.
see these kids in private school and, you see these kids today and it's like mom is driving them every single day.
That's what I did too for my kids. Yeah.
But, like you didn't need to. There's probably other kids in the neighborhood. And
Totally. Yeah.
and there were other people that if you looked at it that way, you could have saved like, let's say, an hour a day for
Yeah.
4 of the 5 days
Yeah. I mean,
or
I
more.
shifted into, particularly in middle school and high school. I enjoyed that time because
Mm-hmm.
we would talk and
Yeah.
listen to the radio and listen to podcasts and have conversations.
Yeah, and that's valuable too. So that's another piece of it, is that when you hit a certain point and even, maybe before that,
Mm-hmm.
do you have that time where it's a valuable time for you? And
Right.
that then becomes one of your, that's a priority.
Yeah, it was.
So you have that moment and you have that, for whatever reason, when people are
Yeah.
sitting next to each other and looking forward and not looking at each other, somehow kids
Yes.
just open up and talk about stuff. And, that's valuable.
Yeah. But I had also had a friend who she was moved from South Florida to open targets in Canada. So she was pretty high level corporate. And
Mm-hmm.
her teenage daughter ended up not going with her, and she thought she would. And she had told me, like, the thing I miss the most is time in the car with her. That's what I miss the most. And so it's like I had that, going into, she was ahead of me in terms of motherhood. I had that going into like the high school years of, okay, yeah, this is important time. Right. So
Right.
sometimes it's just a very small comment or something like that happens in our lives that then drives a whole nother set of changes for us that are value
Right.
driven, really.
And that, when you think about it, that car time, it's a presence
Mm-hmm.
thing.
It is.
And that's, again, the flow state, the being present. I'm
Yeah.
huge on the be here now concept of,
Mm-hmm.
when you're in the car with the kid, having some boundaries around that time, kind of
Yes.
like having the notifications off your computer. If you can
Yes.
have, some kind of boundaries around that time that give you that, your kid is with you
Yeah.
in
So
the
I'm
car.
guessing that's an important part of your program is like, how do you set those boundaries around your time so that you're creating a better internal experience for yourself?
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
And that's going to be different for everybody, because
Yes.
and this is where it gets really individualized, is working with people on,
Yeah.
and it goes to all kinds of things. We go into health practices.
Mm-hmm.
Again, more bending time. If you are fatigued,
Mm-hmm.
distracted, unable to sit and
Mm-hmm.
get the work done,
Mm-hmm.
you're not going to be as effective.
Yes.
So physical health matters too.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
just getting enough sleep, eating, I call it eating the rainbow, eating a variety of healthy
Mm-hmm.
foods, drinking enough water,
Mm-hmm.
moving your body.
Mm-hmm.
Health lecture done. Simple, but it's
Yeah.
not. Like most people
It's
aren't
not.
doing those
Yeah.
things. So I
Right.
go into more detail with people on that stuff. And we actually
Okay.
do food journaling and,
Mm-hmm.
look at energy, look at what are you doing in your day and how do you feel at different times of your day?
Mm-hmm.
Because the other piece of it is if you're always a little bit fatigued at a certain time of day, don't put the stuff that's like the hardest into that time of the day.
Oh, yeah.
You
Yeah. I
know,
was interviewed on a podcast at one point about like, um, I'm trying to think. I think I was running two businesses at that point. So my private practice and then the yoga business.
mhm.
And the question came up of like, what do you recommend to other moms, other women that are, running multiple businesses or trying to manage their time? And I said, like, know your own energy patterns. So I know that my best energy is like in the morning. So I
Yeah.
focus most of my effort there versus like in the afternoon for me, it slows down some. I slow down, my thinking processes slow down. So it's like when you know that, then you can form your life around it, let's say. Like do
Right.
those hardest things first in
And that
the
might be the
morning or
time that you look at your emails and you return some
yeah,
phone calls and
exactly.
that kind of
Yeah.
thing, which for me, like the returning the phone calls and having that contact and talking to people helps kind of bring my energy back.
Mm-hmm.
And I won't get that if I'm focusing on reading and writing and
Yeah, that's true.
creative work, it's a different kind of energy.
Yes.
And if you can put that into the time of your day where it works. And then you also, of course, if you have a family, you're working that into your family schedule in a way.
Yeah.
I know a lot of moms who get up at 5 a.m. and do stuff early because that's when they have a quiet
Yep.
house
Yep.
and they have an hour or two where they can get some stuff done before they're,
Yep.
packing lunches and
Right.
all that stuff.
Exactly.
So, that matters and it matters so much and people don't really it's how you schedule your day is huge.
Oh, it is. It is. So it sounds like I mean, I see lawyers as very analytical, but it's like it sounds like you use all those analytical skills to help someone form the life that's happier for them. Yeah.
In a
That's
sense,
more
in a sense,
satisfying.
I don't think of myself as
You
particularly
don't?
analytical, but I might be. I actually I laugh about the fact that I had a partner that he and I could not get along. We were absolutely oil and water, and he could not deal with my thought process because it was like, imagine this is him.
Uh-huh. She's
Point A
holding
is
up her
over here
pen.
and point B is over here, and everything had to be in the little line.
Okay.
And he'd assign somebody a project, and if they went over there somewhere, he'd be like, well, how come you looked at that? Because I just asked you to look at this.
Uh-huh.
And, my way of looking at a case was literally like this.
Like
I was looking
wasting the
for all
hands.
this stuff, and then I'd find ways to tie it together.
Yeah.
And it made him crazy.
Oh, how
But
do
it's
you
how
see
my
it?
brain
To
works.
me, that's like analytical. You're going to take all the little different pieces and throw them together. But what would you call it? Creative?
I don't know. It's like this. I Am I kinesthetic? Yes, I am.
Michelle's like moving her hands for the
Yes,
listeners,
and
like sort of
so
like,
exactly, and
wax
my hands
off
are
kind
going
of
around in
circles.
circles all around me, and yeah, and so that really for me is it's something I have to take into account
Yeah.
in how I do my business, right, and in how I work. But
Yes.
I do find I have a really brilliant ability to capture those things that are like to find the patterns.
Uh-huh.
and and that is something that I bring to the table when I work with people because it's not everybody has that skill. And that
Absolutely
has
right.
been a really like that to me is probably my superpower.
Awesome. I love it. Yeah. So we're coming to the end of our time, but can you tell people how to contact you, how to work with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So they can text the word clarity
Hmm.
to 33777,
Okay. Can you say it
and
again?
that's clarity to
Two.
33777.
Okay.
And I'll also give you the link to the same place. It gets them into a community page in my website, which enables them to download the guided meditation and journaling prompts to find your clarity.
Okay.
As well as a tool that we didn't talk about, which is kind of one of my upper level, I call it the ninja tool, which is called the SWOT analysis.
Okay.
And that's something people can use to analyze their goals and then decide how much they really want it.
Ah, interesting.
And then carry that forward into planning how to build a team and how to plan your growth to make the goal happen.
Love it. Yeah, lots of people make goals, but they don't evaluate, like, how much do I actually want this?
Right.
Yeah.
How consistent is it? And you'd be surprised how many people are carrying around that goal that when they were 12 years old, something looked cool and they thought that's what they wanted to be or do. And now they're 40 and they're spending money on it and they're, spending time away from their family and whatever. And when they really look at it, they're like, I don't even like this that much. Why did I think but it's part of what they've built themselves to believe they are.
Their self-concept shifts.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay. We'll put both in the show notes. And even if your podcast player doesn't show the show notes, because some of them don't, then it's always on my website. So you can search it up there. Just thank you so much for being here and sharing your wisdom with us today.
Well, thank you, Liz.
Yeah. All right. So let me stop the recording. I hope you truly enjoyed today's episode. Remember that you can get free hypnosis downloads over at my website, drlizhypnosis.com, DRLIZ hypnosis.com. I work all over the world doing hypnosis. So if you're interested in working with me, please schedule a free consultation over at my website and we'll see what your goals are and if I can be of service to you in helping you reach them. Finally, if you liked today's episode, please subscribe to the podcast or tell a friend. That way, more and more people learn about the power of hypnosis. All right, everyone, have a wonderful week. Peace. This podcast is not mental health treatment, nor should it replace mental health treatment. If you need therapy or hypnotherapy, please seek treatment from a trained professional.